I'm going to be reading from my YA novel in progress, The Two Sisters, and what you need to know is that Hugh is Anne's cousin and he tried to assault her in the scene before this one. Will is her best friend and Cecily's her little sister. As we watched, there was a movement down below on the grounds. After a moment, Will saw it too. "Come on," I said. Hugh was sneaking out. We followed quietly at a great enough distance not to be spied, but near enough to be able to study whatever we saw with a close and scientific eye. Hugh stopped by a large pond. There was someone else there waiting. I pulled Will down beside me into the tall grass, and we crept forward beneath a drooping willow. We moved out under the boughs as close to the shore as we could get without exposing ourselves. The concealed space was small, and our shoulders pressed together. The girl on the shore was a village lass from her dress, and she greeted Hugh very familiarly indeed. There were rumors amongst the servants that Hugh, now nearly 17, had been responsible for several illegitimate children in the village, and still the scene before us was a surprise. Hugh's lips and tongue were all over the lass, kissing her, almost biting her, her cheek, her neck, her ear, her chest. I watched with a great deal of interest. Will was utterly still. Hugh untied her bodice, and his hand slipped into her gown. We were close enough to hear a low moan escape her lips as he guided the tip of her breast to his mouth. I was suddenly strangely aware of my own new arrivals. After several moments, they finally broke apart. They finished removing their clothes and tossed them on the sand. I had never seen a man unclothed before. The moon was high by then and quite illuminating. She laughed as he chased her into the water, and they swam off towards the center of the pond, making a great deal of noise and splashing. They were too far away for us to see the rest of their tryst. As the waves subsided near the shore, I could hear Will's breath beside me, strangely loud in the now still air. He leaned towards me to speak, his curls brushing my cheek. His breath was warm on my neck. "Do you dare me?" I whispered. Without waiting for an answer, I darted forward. "Anne, wait!" he hissed, but I was off. I grabbed Hugh's pants and the tunic and sprinted away into the night. It did not take Will long to catch me up. He grasped my free hand, and together we raced away across the moors. "Who's there?" Hugh called out, but we knew these fields so much better than he. There was no way he could follow us. We had won. The wind rushed in our ears, and we could not stop laughing. Hugh's pants flew out behind us like a banner. We ran and ran and ran and ran until we all but collapsed. I did not make a conscious choice of our destination, but I knew where we were headed. I released Will's hand when we arrived and used Hugh's pants to wipe the sweat from my forehead. I breathed deeply of the moist earth and moss. Down below us, the bubbling, gurgling river rushed past. The wizened old oak leaned over at the waist and reached out her arms to greet me, to welcome us into her secret world. I crawled under her arms and Will followed me. "Have a pillow," I said, settling the pile of clothes on the earth behind me. Will lay down beside me, our arms just barely brushing. We were silent for a long time, but it was a warm sort of silence. A breeze blew gently over us, twisting our hair together like vines. The smell of damp, smoky birch drifted over us. A farmer in the village was burning his dinner remains. The night was wonderful and clear and bright, and the stars shone like beautiful kingdoms in the sky. I marveled that I had never paid much attention to them before. "What do you think will happen to Hugh when he arrives back at your doors as naked as the Lord created him?" Will asked. "I don't know," I said. "The servants will see him, and it will make a fine story for the maids to pass back and forth behind their parlor readers tomorrow." He shook his head. "Anne," he sighed. His tone piqued me. "What, Will? What is it? You've had this mysterious look about you since you got here. Speak." "He'll be put on constant watch." "Well, surely that's for the best," I said. "He won't be happy about it." "Well, he won't be able to do anything about his displeasure if he has 4 chaperones peering over his shoulder wherever he goes, will he?" "Perhaps not," Will said, though he did not sound convinced. He lapsed into silence. All of a sudden, I was ready to be home. I crossed my arms over my chest for warmth. Will nudged me. "Anne!" "What?" I felt him suppress a laugh. He pointed up at the sky. "Those ones are Orion," he said. "What's Orion?" "It's a constellation, star pictures. Do you see those 3 stars across there?" he said. I nodded, just barely. Orion is the archer. Those 3 stars are his belt. Actually, it looks like someone turning a somersault. Where do the constellations come from? I guess men make them up, he said. I have to memorize them in my natural history tutorial. People away in the universities in Paris and London spend all their days making maps of the sky. Really? Yep, when they discover something new, a comet or a planet or a new star that no one has seen or noticed before, they get to name it after themselves. I'm going to discover something new, I decided promptly. He laughed. How's that? Well, I'll look, won't I? He laughed. Only scholars get to spend all their time stargazing. Well, then I'll be a scholar. He laughed again. I sat up and pulled Hugh's breeches away so that his head hit the ground. Oh, Anne, he said, sitting up, they're all men, and poor ones at that. I will build a ship with my own 2 hands, William Cavendish, and I will sail it through the heavens themselves, and I will discover all of the stars. I pulled my legs up under my chin and stared at the sky as though I could memorize it all just by looking hard enough. Fine, he said, scooting next to me, then I'll come with you. There won't be enough food for you. Well, who else is going to keep the gears working? Will's voice cracked on the word gears, and I snorted. Since he had studied gears in his tutorial, everything seemed to relate to them. He reached over and squeezed my side, and against my will I shrieked. I pounced on him and pinned him to the ground beneath me. There won't be any gears on this ship, I said into his face, and I gave his shoulders a little shake for emphasis. He didn't answer. Our faces were so close that we shared a breath for a moment, and then my heart was hammering away in my chest and his hands were on my waist. Differently. I shook my head, flustered. Anne, he whispered. Suddenly there was a tearing and a tumbling noise away behind us. Help! A familiar voice cried out. I leapt up and looked toward the rise, shivering with the sudden cold. I think it's Cecily. I looked back over my shoulder at him. He was still on the ground. He looked so far away suddenly. It's Cecily, I said again. His lips parted as though he might say something, but he didn't. I shrugged and turned and started jogging up the rise towards her.